Alright, we're talking about proportions today, and your learning target is I can write and solve proportions. And I apologize, I got a cold over the weekend, and my voice is still trying to recover really, but it's going to be alright. Let's go through some definitions, okay? So there's this thing called dimensional analysis, and it's a process that uses rates to convert measurements from one unit to the other, okay? So if we're trying to convert measurements from one unit to another, we use this thing called dimensional analysis, and we'll practice that here in a little bit. Now, a rate where two quantities are equal but use different units, that is called a conversion factor, okay? So what I'm talking about here is we have two different units. It's a rate with two different units, but they are equal. Okay, 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. Sorry, that looks like FF. That's 1 foot. 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. This is called a conversion factor. Or another example of this might be 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. Okay, these are the exact same thing. They're just two different units we could use to explain the same thing, right? Oh, it took me 60 minutes to do my homework, or it took me 1 hour to do my homework. It's saying the exact same thing, just different units, okay? So let's do an example now. Example 1 says that a fast sprinter can run 100 yards in approximately 10 seconds. Use dimensional analysis, remember that means to convert measurements from one unit to another, to convert 100 yards to miles. And it says round to the nearest hundredth, and then it also tells us a little hint that there's 1,760 yards in a mile, okay? So we know we have 100 yards, and we're going to multiply that. We're just trying to get out of yards and into miles, and if we're trying to get out of yards, yards is in the numerator, that means yards needs to be in the denominator. And we're trying to get to miles. So I'm just setting up this little proportion here. So we have 100 yards over 1 times how many miles are in a yard. Well, we know that 1 mile, given this information right here, there is 1,760 yards. Okay? Now, if we just solve this here, where we take 100 times 1 times 1760, and divide those, we'll end up seeing what we get. So all we really have to do then is take our calculator. We take, looks like I already did it, 100 divided by 1,760 yards. And we are supposed to round to the nearest hundredth. This is the tenths place. Here's the hundredths. We use the 6 to round that up. And so our answer then is 0.06 miles in 10 seconds. That sprinter can go 0.06 miles in 10 seconds is what that means. Okay, let's do some proportions now. Now, proportions, we just use the golf club rule. And remember, the golf club rule states that you just make two golf clubs by cross-multiplying. So we're going to multiply these two, and we're going to multiply these two, and set the two values equal to each other, okay? So we have 9 times 5 is equal to, that's these two, 3 times m, 3m, okay? Now we're just solving for m, and first we need to multiply those. That's 45. Is equal to 3m, and then we divide by 3 on both sides, and we end up getting 45 divided by 3 is 15 is equal to m. Okay, some of those are really easy, but other of these, like this one over here, it takes a little bit more work, right? So we have 2 times y minus 3, so 2 times a whole y minus 3 is equal to 6 times 7. And now we have to do a little bit more math. We have to use the distribution property, or the rainbow rule. 2 times y is 2y, and 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And 6 times 7 is 42. And now we can just solve using that two-step equation. We're going to add 6 to both sides, and we get 2y is equal to 48. Divide by 2. And we end up with y equals 24. So we're seeing now that the unit that we learned last unit is really coming into handy in here to try and solve these types of problems. Okay, let's do the last example. Now, example 3 says that a contractor has a blueprint for a house drawn to the scale of 1 inch is equal to 3 feet. That's the rate that we're talking about. So let's go ahead and write that. I'm going to reverse that though. I'm going to say 3 feet over 1 inch. Okay, that is the rate, the ratio of how the contractor's blueprint relates to the house that is going to be built. Is every inch on the blueprint is equal to 3 feet in real life terms. Okay. Now it says that the wall on a blueprint is 6.5 inches long. Okay. We're trying to find out how long is that wall actually in length. Okay. And so if we're trying to get rid of inches and we're trying to see what feet are, that means we have to put it in the opposite side. So if it was in the denominator, it needs to go in the numerator. If it was in the numerator, then it needs to go in the denominator. Okay, and inches is in the denominator. We're trying to get rid of 6.5, so we have to put that in the numerator. Okay, and we don't know what this is here. So now it's just multiplying 3 times 6.5. That can get a little tricky when we have a decimal, so we're going to get our friend. We say, hi friend, 6.5 times 3 is 19.5. Therefore, the actual length of that wall, in real life, when the contractor actually builds it, it should be 19.5 feet in length. Okay, and that's all we're doing here for today. We're just working on proportions. Hope you enjoyed. Keep it real. Peace.